Good afternoon, I'm Brian Reagan. This is
Tyler Kelly.
And welcome to our midday meditation. Today we're in Luke 13, verses 1 through 9. Tyler?
There were present at that season some who told him about the Galileans whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifices. And Jesus answered and said to them, Do you suppose that these Galileans were worse sinners than all other Galileans because they suffered such things? I tell you, no, but unless you repent, you will all likewise perish. Or those 18 on whom the tower of Siloam fell and killed them. Do you think that they were worse sinners than all other men who dwelt in Jerusalem? I tell you, no, but unless you repent, you will all likewise perish. He also spoke this parable. A certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard. He came seeking fruit on it and found none. Then he said to the keeper of his vineyard, Look, for 3 years I have come seeking fruit on this fig tree and found none. Cut it down. Why does it use up the ground? But he answered and said to him, Sir, let it alone this year also, until I dig around it and fertilize it. And if it bears fruit, well. But if not, after that you may cut it down, or can cut it down.
All right. So as you're looking at this, you say, what? No, these are connected. These are definitely connected. We have this belief, Tyler, that when bad things happen, it must be because you're a horrible sinner.
Mm-hmm.
And people, no, we don't believe that today. Are you sure? Years ago, I forget, they had like an 8-point whatever earthquake in Turkey. And some people were like, well, brother, that's because they're Muslim over there. That's God punishing them because they're Muslim. And I'm like, okay. They had an earthquake there in San Francisco that their stacked bridges collapsed and all that. Well, brother, that's because San Francisco's an evil city. It's got all those people that are evil. Okay. And then, of course, Hurricane Katrina and New Orleans. Well, brother, that's Lord judging them because they're all wicked there. And when your cousin Billy Bob, because he's driving drunk, wrecks his vehicle and kills 5 other people and he's on ICU and you want me to pray for your cousin Billy Bob, no one ever says to me, pray for him because he's evil and God's judging him. No one ever says that. And this thing where we think that the people we don't know must somehow be more evil than we are. Or that they deserved it for some reason. First of all, folks, long before Islam, Turkey was known for its earthquakes. What we call Turkey is kind of its own tectonic plate, right there at the intersection of a bunch of other tectonic plates. And those 7 churches in Revelation, I'm trying to remember which town it is right now. They rebuilt the town in a different location near where the town was, because where the original town was built, every time there was an earthquake, the whole thing literally fell to pieces. So they moved it, a few hundred yards off of where one of these main points was, and now there's still a town there. It's nothing like what the original town was in the time of Rome. But now please don't say, well, God was judging them because they were wicked during Rome. That's when Jesus said this. And he says, unless you repent, you'll all likewise perish.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Tyler?
Yes?
He goes right into a parable about trees and putting manure on them.
Mm-hmm.
What does that have to do with what Jesus has been talking about to these people about repenting and perishing? Good answer. I don't know. First of all, Jesus is big about sowing, planting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number 1. Number 2, Jesus is big about bearing fruit.
Mm-hmm.
No, and please don't say, well, brother, there's fruit that you never know about. Jesus is looking for fruit that's what? Obvious, visible, plain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But the fruit he's looking for is conversions of life. From rebellion to righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
From sin to righteousness. From repent and perished to repented and preserved. That's what he's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to get them to realize, y'all are fruit, your lives are these trees, and unless you get busy bearing fruit, you're going to perish too. Because this tree has a date for perishing. Because in that parable, what does he say? He says, let me dig around it and dung it, or put manure on it. I like how the modern translations, most of them go, fertilize it. At least the New Revised says, let me put manure on it. Old King James said, let us dung it. We'll put one more round to give it an opportunity to do what the tree's supposed to do. And if it doesn't, then it's cut down. Mm-hmm. Now let me ask you something. A tree that's cut down so that it can no longer bear fruit or live is a tree that is thriving or a tree that is perished?
Perished.
A tree that doesn't bear fruit, that does start bearing fruit, is a tree that moves in, what's the R word that he just used back up there in those first 5 verses?
Repenting?
Repenting. It means the tree of your life, the tree which is your life, the tree which you're symbolic of in this parable, God can give you every opportunity to bear fruit, but if you don't do it, it's your fault. Mm-hmm. God's provided the soil. God's provided the fertilizer. God's provided caretaking. God's provided everything you need to bear fruit. But if you don't, you've got a date of perishing. Mm-hmm. And the devil's gotten people into this mindset that, there's secret fruit that no one knows about. Yeah, I'm not talking about where Jesus says, do your good works so that men might see your works and glorify your Father in heaven. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about in Matthew 6 where he says, do your alms not to be seen of men. Not talking about that. That's not the fruit Jesus is talking about here. He's talking about manifesting the works of righteousness and conversion in your life and in the lives of others. That's what he's talking about. And the scary part is most of the church has now slipped into this mode where almost no one bears the fruit that Jesus is looking for. And there have been times where that's been me. So I'm not judging you. There's been times where I've been the no fruit guy. And then I read passages like this and I say, oh man, I better get back to bearing fruit. So, thoughts on this one?
No, sir.
All right. With that, I'm Brian Reagan. This is
Tyler Kelly.
And we bid you good afternoon.